I had them all long before I dialed up. How they claiming they on top when I'm a mile up. I had them all long before I dialed up. How they claiming they on top when I'm a mile up. I know the wall's closing in, but don't you dare give up now. Poe believed in me, pull up through some bucks down. Todd told the valet pull the truck round. Push the line up that we drew it, it's just us now. Would you believe me if I told you my granny told me she prayed this? Then booked the surgery just to pull me out of the basement. Right back where I started, nothing to show for a facelift. Got pushed playing Walter White and Davis, never felt so dangerous. The type of power they can't quantify. And name the best from my region, you gotta utter mine. Think of who really putting on, you never come to mind. Rapping like your Spotify, tap you rappers compromise. Yeah, no need to panic, just paint the canvas. If you can feel the static, too close, find your balance. Embed the revolution for they prohibition bandwidth. Blood trickle from the leaders he was planning. I had them all long before I dialed up. How they claiming they on top when I'm a mile up. I had them all long before I dialed up. How they claiming they on top when I'm a mile up. Boarded that flight to Amsterdam. When my accountant of minus my family found out too and didn't like it. You're not in the salon with Dale said and I thought he was biased. Then I got a Venmo that said copy the finest. Before my foolishness settled in, recorded a whole tape before we got to Berlin. This close to giving up but now never again. Don't overlook the work and come expecting to win. In the end, my word, never put nothing over the squad. Got it right up under their nose, gentrified the facade. Off the cliff with broken wings, I'm aware of the odds. Enough faith for it all, I'm the one for the job. Most days, catching sun rays, baby, look like the front page. Overthinking what they might say, have it your way. Yeah, the biggest threat is something they never seen. Dial it up, patch me into the screen. I had them all long before I dial up. How they claiming they on top and I'm a mile up. I had them all long before I dial up. How they claiming they on top and I'm a mile up.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Live in Lukman Nation, the most dangerous show on social media, on the most dangerous platform on social media, Black Power Media, which just celebrated our 1-year anniversary of the Remix Morning Show. This morning, Remix Morning Show can be seen on this network between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m., Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We have a great time on the show, lots of intense discussion, but a lot of fun, goofy discussion, and we love it. We're proud of what we've built, and we're going to keep on rolling. We've been in it for 1 year, and we intend to stay in it till infinity. So we appreciate your support here on Black Power Media. And before we get started, let's get to the housekeeping. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe to Black Power Media right now. Make sure to click the notification bell so you can get notified whenever anybody on this channel goes live. We have lots and lots of great content and even more to come. You can support Black Power Media through Patreon, patreon.com/Black Power Media. And guess what? You can support Lukman Nation on Patreon too, patreon.com/Lukman Nation, LUQMANNATION. We appreciate you. Thank you for joining us. I am so excited about tonight's discussion because I got to realize one of my life's dreams. It has always been, ever since I've been seriously anti-imperialist and really got into organizing maybe 20 years ago, but really started to be seriously committed to anti-imperialism maybe 10 years ago. I have always wanted to go to Venezuela, one of the places I've always wanted to go. The other place, obviously, Cuba, because I wanted to see what it looked like when the people won, because we don't really see that here. So I got to realize one of my dreams, and I got to go to Venezuela last week, and I got to see exactly that. But I also got to see the importance of understanding why a revolution is a process, and it's not just this static moment in time that we have to aspire to, and we celebrate, and we just stop and rest on our laurels. It doesn't work like that. So I appreciated the experience, and I absolutely appreciate uh, this gentleman coming on the show to talk about Venezuela's struggles against fascism and imperialism and what we can learn from that. And I really appreciate, let me see if I can have him on the screen. He looks like he's off for just a moment, but I did get to meet Carlos Ron, who is Venezuela's Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs for North America and the president of the Simón Bolívar Institute. And I'm really excited that he is with me tonight on Lukman Nation. Carlos Ron, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Thank you, Jacquie. My pleasure. Very happy to see you again, and very happy to be here with your fans.
Yeah, I can't tell you how excited I was to be in Venezuela last week. How much of an honor it was to meet you. And and especially when I got back and I saw that the comment that I made on the bus coming from somewhere, I can't even remember where we were coming from, um, was actually made, it was featured in the Simon Bolivar Institute. And I didn't even know that the person who was doing the filming was a representative of the Simon Bolivar Institute. So I was particularly tickled that that my little video quote was broadcast from your institute. So, like, first of all, Carlos, tell us what you do, because I'm not sure that, I don't like to assume that people know what roles and titles are, especially since the state in Venezuela is a different thing from the state in the United States, right? So what do you do as the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs for North America and as president of the Simon Bolivar Institute? Uh-oh, I think he's freezing a little bit, and hopefully he's going to be able
So,
to. Oh, there he is. Uh-oh, and he's dropped. This was one of the little quirky issues that we had in Venezuela. um not the most stable internet connection, but that's okay, we'll struggle through it. All right, we got you back.
okay. So what I was sort of led into the other. I am a diplomat and under with the responsibility towards the region of North America. So that means that I take care of Venezuela's relations both with the United States and with Canada. Now, as you know, we don't have diplomatic relations right now with uh, the United States because of the differences we've had over the recent years, particularly under the Trump administration, where the break of relations actually took place. So, but what we have been doing since, and we created the Simón Bolívar Institute for Solidarity because it was important for us to maintain ties with the people of the United States, as well as with the people of all over the world. And so this is diplomacy, not diplomacy between ministries,
Oh, I'm
social
sorry, you're breaking up
movement.
quite a bit.
Uh,
I'm so sorry, Carlos, you are breaking up quite a bit. And I think he's frozen again. Yeah, bad internet is white supremacy. And because and you have to understand that Venezuela, the government of Venezuela, is under intense sanctions. And I think we're kind of seeing the result of that, where the infrastructure is not able to be updated the way it should be and could be because of the sanctions, because the government is not able to do business and trade with a lot of countries to provide the kind of basic sort of infrastructure services that you would think a government would be able to provide. So it is definitely an issue that we see when we're in Venezuela. If you ever get a chance to go, you see the impact of the sanctions on the age of the buildings that are the high-rise apartment buildings of mostly working class and poor people. So that what you see is that a lot of those buildings, with the exception of the buildings that are part of the 4 million housing unit project that was just completed, a lot of the older buildings are, you see that they are old, and that they are not as modern, and they need to be updated. But Venezuela, the Venezuelan government has to be selective. They have to be selective in where they're able to apply the resources from the one industry that the government controls, and that is the oil industry, the oil company, the nationalized oil company, PDVSA. So there are other industries in Venezuela, but they are owned by the capitalist class. They are owned by private corporations. So when the government of the United States sanctions the government of Venezuela, they are sanctioning the resources from the sale of oil that PDVSA makes. The government of the United States never sanctions a private corporation owner in Venezuela. So what Venezuela is able to do in regard to building 4 million housing units, and there were some high-rise buildings that they built that, and I did see some of them, but we weren't able to kind of go on that wasn't part um of the itinerary that we had, but I was able to just, from the distance, kind of see some of them. 4 million housing units. So when the government of the United States sanctions the government of Venezuela, when the Treasury Department freezes $7 billion in Venezuelan assets, when the Bank of England steals $2 billion in Venezuelan gold, that money is coming from the revenue of PDVSA, which is the nationalized Venezuelan oil company. The capitalists in Venezuela, they keep their money. And they keep their money, and they do not share it with the people. And you can see the disparity. But even with the sanctions that the US has imposed on Venezuela, they are still able to provide for their people, to the point where when you go to Caracas, you don't see homeless people. Because when you build 4 million housing units, there's a home for everyone. Everyone has a home. So even under the sanctions, and even with the infrastructure, and some infrastructure projects are being done. Like, we went into Venezuela, and I noticed that a lot of the roads from the airport into the city seem very new. So that's probably a part of the infrastructure project that they were able to do. And remember, Venezuela also, the Bolivarian government of Venezuela also provides a pretty substantial food aid package to people, so that nobody goes hungry. in Venezuela. So this is what the government that the people struggled for is able to do, even as the right wing in Venezuela still exists, and there are struggles internally to keep the right wing from chipping away at what the people have won, and the people are struggling against the right wing to advance and expand what they have accomplished. But this is what I mean. And this is glad you asked that question, Mani. How does that work in Venezuela? How is the capitalist class able to be so large in this kind of situation? This is something I think we have to be be very careful in understanding. Venezuela, ever since Hugo Chavez won the landslide election and defeated the right wing in Venezuela in 1998, I want to say it was, the United States has been really gunning for Venezuela. So they have had to be, they tried a coup in 2002. The U.S. did, with the help of the right wing in Venezuela, and Carlos will tell us more about that. But those elements were not like eliminated, right? So from my perspective, and this is just my perspective, I think that because the Venezuelan government is under so much pressure and scrutiny from the U.S., that if there were to be any kind of a move to oust or get rid of in any way, I'm being very careful with my words, the right wing in Venezuela, that would precipitate, that would draw an immediate military response from the United States. So this is something that the Bolivarian government has to be very, very careful that they don't trigger the United States doing more to the gains of the revolution than they are, while at the same time trying to stave off the continued attacks from the right in Venezuela. But that's my perspective. I think we have Carlos back on, so I'm going to bring him back on, and I'm going to let him explain this much better than I can, because the question Carlos was asked, that since the government in Venezuela pretty much controls PDVSA, and there is, like, I went into Caracas and I could see, well, there is a large capitalist class there. So when the U.S. sanctions the Venezuelan government, they're sanctioning the resources from the sale of oil that PDVSA does. The capitalist class, I bet you, never gets sanctioned. You know, the corporations that own that privatize other industries that the government does not control, they don't get sanctioned, but the government does. So how does that work in Venezuela? Why is that? I guess the question people are asking is, why is that still the case in Venezuela? Why is there still a right wing in Venezuela? And how does the Bolivarian government manage that relationship that seems very tenuous, particularly considering the U.S. definitely backs the right wing in Venezuela? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry
That's
about
no
this.
problem. No
Lots of trouble
worries.
today.
We are
Anyway,
patient.
so you bring up a very interesting question. Obviously, the main purpose of U.S. sanctions are to hurt the Venezuelan people, are to hurt the majority of Venezuelan people. So the majority that includes everyone really is going to be hurt. Of course, if you are middle class, upper middle class, you have other resources to balance out, even out. But it's the working class that's of course is going to try to suffer the most. And the reason that this takes place because this was a government that since 1999 uh, emphasized social programs and emphasized social justice, because the aim of the government was really to strengthen those institutions and those and trying to basically trying to cover the social debt that the government had with its people, so that you wanted to provide enough housing, enough health care, enough education, all these things that have been missing from the majority of the Venezuelan people for so many years during neoliberal during the neoliberal programs. Now the sanctions are aimed specifically at attacking those programs, as to weaken the socialist government, as to weaken those things that we had achieved. I mean, we overcame illiteracy in 2008, and then you see how now today with some sanctions, we can't even get. It's hard to even get school buses to the country so that you can continue to school people, and so basically that's the attempt. Of course, this is a full-fledged democracy. Now, in a full-fledged democracy, we'll always have your contentions between the right and the left. That never ceased to happen because there's room for different opinions here. Now, what we're trying to overcome though is that attitude of trying to change things through violent means, through anti-constitutional means, through undemocratic means. What we're trying to tell, the wealthy classes in Venezuela is that there is space in this country for everyone, but under democratic rules, and you have to respect specifically the rights of those people that have been forgotten and put aside for so many years. And you have to understand. So what you see, the nature of the class struggle in Venezuela and the nature of class tensions in Venezuela, it really comes not out of gaining new rights that people earned under a more popular government, but rather the tensions come from those people losing privileges,
Mm.
because what we did was to throw away those privileges. And when you lose privileges, you begin to react violently. And the right wing in Venezuela has been violent against the popular classes, against the popular government, precisely because they felt they were losing the privileges that they used to once have over the country.
Yeah, so I think people are unaware of how, because I've mentioned the Bolivarian Revolution, and we've talked about revolution and victory or defeating the fascists in the sense that they no longer control the country. How did that come about? How did the government of Venezuela turn from a government that was run by the right wing, one run by the privileged class, and turn into a government that is socialist, that prioritizes the needs of people, as you said, who have been forgotten, and is trying to expand that socialist process?
It wasn't an easy process, and first, I think what we had was basically a two-party system that preached democracy, but really excluded most of the population. You had about 75% of the population on the party, and people even began to become cynical about politics and began to think that nothing was going to happen, nothing they could do would change. Then came the moment of the military rebellion in 1992, that was originally led by President Chavez, who at the time was not was in the military, and that kind of gave a shockwave through the country,
Mm.
basically saying, look, there are people that understand that this government, this corruption, this lack of representation can no longer take place. Now, President Chavez at the time was taken into, of course, was imprisoned for the military rebellion. He went to prison for 2 years, but after he was released from prison by public, because of public support and public pressure, uh, he became a candidate. He ran as a candidate. He created a movement and a political party, ran as a candidate, and ran specifically with one key issue that was reconstructing Venezuela's constitution. He promised that is if he was elected, he was going to allow for a referendum to call for a new constitution and for people to participate in that decision making process. And I think that was the key issue that engaged people, that engaged the masses, because people like to feel, as opposed to of what the capitalist system will tell you, people like to feel that they're participating in politics. They like to feel that their decisions are mean something, and that their participation can be taken into consideration. So when that process for a new constitution was taken up, then I think that completely changed politics in Venezuela. When the year 2002 came, and there was a coup attempt against President Chavez,
Mm-hmm.
people weren't really defending socialism, or they weren't defending even all the social programs that we see today, because he had only been in power for 2 years.
Right.
Basically, I mean, none of the achievements that we are proud of today had even happened. But what people came to the streets to defend was the fact that they had participated in the Constitution, and this right wing was basically eradicating the Constitution. They were saying, this Constitution is no longer valid, even though we, the people, participating in drafting, participated and voting in favor of that Constitution. So what the people came to the streets to defend was the right for for the democracy to be respected and for the vote to be respected, their vote for President Chavez. And then I think that's where we made a big jump, because the right wing realized that they no longer had the control over the country, that the people did. And then the people became, they realized that they had the power to maintain their popularly elected government, and became more eager to deepen that democratic process. And that's how we started having all these other social programs that we come up to until today. But it was really the eagerness of the people to participate and to be a part of their democracy. When you comparisons aren't always just, but when you compare the system that you have in the United States, it is a representative democracy where you elect leaders to represent your interests. In Venezuela, with the new constitution, we became a participatory democracy. Yes, we have representatives, people that we elect to National Assembly and to other places, but there's also room for us to participate and make our own decisions. There's communal councils, there's communes. So
Mm.
the decision making is not only somewhere far from the people, is decision making can be very close to the local level in your own community. Communities now have the decision, the power to decide what gets built. If you need infrastructure that is important, or if you want a hospital or a school to be built, all these needs are better
Oh, oh. I think we've he froze again, so we're just gonna wait for him to be able to reconnect. There we go.
yes.
Yeah, got you back.
So I think the difference is that now with a participatory democracy, you're part of the decision making process,
Hmm.
and you become, and the other element that we say, we're a participatory democracy with people's protagonism, meaning that you yourself are an agent of change
Oh
in your
wow.
own in your own life, not just waiting for the government to solve a problem for you. And I think you must have seen the experience here with the Kaikachi project, where you had the people that they ended up building. The community built their own homes with
Yeah.
support. with support with the government. I mean, the government provided technical assistance, provided materials, but at the end of the day, it was the people that came out and did their own building. So it's a type of government. What we have here is a type of government where you are part of the transformation. The common everyday people are part of their own transformation. You don't just depend on something coming from above to make your life better.
And I mean, there's so much in that, but I think first I want people to understand, I think, the concept of participatory democracy, because you're right, we don't have that here. We have a two-party system, and where they tell us to, we can elect representatives, but the needs of the people, that people don't really participate in the process. So I guess people are wondering how many political parties exist in Venezuela. How often do you have elections? How does that look?
We've averaged about an election a year, or even more than that, since the revolution started.
Wow.
Yes, and we are. There's a system where we have constant elections for different things. We have elections, of course, for the same things that you may have in the United States, so local leaders and Congress and all that. But we also have had several referenda to, for important decisions. We have a recall referendum that for any public official that is elected democratically. So anybody who's been elected at the middle of their mandate, you are able to, if there's any features and needs, to recall to call for a referendum to recall that person from office. So that means that people are not just there and are not held accountable for the next 4 years of their term.
Wow.
People are there and they have to be responsible, because halfway through your term, the people, your base, can say, "Hey, look, you're not doing your job, so we want you out." So people have to, respond and be held accountable. So this is a process, and again, like there's all these levels of democracy and participation, because at the community levels, at the community councils, there's constant election and voting, assembly, and an assembly process that is important for this democracy to, keep going and to be vibrant as it is.
Yeah, I want to talk about the revolution a little bit, because the coup that you mentioned is part of the reason the International Summit Against Fascism was held, because it was held to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the coup in 2002, um, that was overturned by the people. And, I'm 55 years old, Carlos, and I remember watching maybe something on the news about Hugo Chavez being a dictator, right? But and then maybe hearing watching maybe George Tenet and Colin Powell say that, oh, something needs to be done about this Chavez person, and then I heard something about a failed coup, but that was it. But as I learned at the summit, there is so much more to the coup and the people overturning it, and the importance of the media, the role of the media, and its and why it needs to be controlled by the people, that is at the center of that entire episode. So tell people what you can about the coup in 2002, and the role the media played in particular, in the coup, and how the people responded to it.
Well, first of all, we have to say that this was the first media coup that we know of. And that being said, the TV stations that were controlled by the right wing, by the corporate media here in Venezuela, they were part of the coup. And they were part of the coup because they had previously gotten together and sort of set up what the strategy would be. They had pre-recorded messages talking about people being shot and dead, so that people would, you would generate this outrage at the President Chavez government, when in fact this was recorded, maybe a day before, so nothing had happened yet. but it was already part of a plan. So the media also, when President Chavez came on the day of the 11th to speak to the nation in a televised, nationally televised address to sort of say what was going on, the private media basically shut him off, and they did something that had never been done before here in Venezuela. When you usually have these type of addresses, you let the president speak and show what the president's saying. They split the screens, and they would put on, while the president was speaking, they would put images of people being hurt in the march, sort of as to confuse and give this a message that the president was speaking in order to avoid, talking about the violence that was going on in the streets, a violence that they knew was going on because they had planned it the day before, and then several days before, there were snipers in buildings that were shooting at the opposition march. I mean, at their own people. They were shooting at the opposition march in order to create the idea that it had been government supporters that shot them. Now, through all this time, the news cycle basically, once they captured, the palace, and then President Chavez was taken prisoner, they produced this notion that President Chavez had resigned, something that never took place. They said throughout all the media that that President Chavez had resigned, that the country was taking that lightly, and that nothing was, everything was okay, that people should return to their homes and just let things roll the way these coup plotters had planned. Now, people that had already reached a different type of consciousness, people on the street were saying, something's fishy about this. I mean, we don't see President Chavez resigning. We don't see, something's not right. And then a note came out that we were able to release, where President Chavez signed this note saying, "I have not resigned. I am still the president, and this is basically a coup that was going on." A very interesting moment as well was that the Attorney General, because right after they took President Chavez prisoner, none of the spokespersons from the government were allowed back on the screen. The media, the whole, all this is a strategy by all private media outlets. They didn't allow anybody from the government to come back on the screen and say, this is a coup, this is unconstitutional. That wasn't allowed. Now, the Attorney General at the moment, he tricked the TV stations by saying that he was going to announce his resignation, and that by announcing his resignation, he was going to pledge allegiance to this new government. So all the TV stations came in for the press conference. They were all ready to get his resignation. When he starts speaking, he starts saying, "This is a coup. This is President Chavez. There is no proof that President Chavez has resigned. Therefore, he's still the president of the country." And they immediately shut him off before he could finish the sentence, because they were they didn't want the people to realize what was going on. When people saw this on TV, people realize, okay, this is what we're waiting for. Now we know this is a lie. The media is lying to us. They went out to the streets, and then alternative media, started blasting radios, phone messages. People started, driving around people on motorcycles. You see a lot of motorcycles here because a lot of people, working class people, it's a way of working, doing their jobs. People went through neighborhoods in motorcycles, telling communities, he hasn't resigned, he's still there. We have to do something about it. And that's why we celebrated popular communication, because it was really that effort by the communities, by alternative media, by popular communicators, that was able to overturn the narrative and overturn the coup. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to get the information out of what was really going on here in Venezuela. There's the note, exactly. Yep. Yeah, that's and this story is a very interesting story, because he's taken prisoner in one of the military bases, and one of the soldiers there approaches him and says, commander, with the military salute, is it true that you resigned? And he said, and President Chavez says, no, that's not true. It's not a lie. I never resigned. So the officer says, well, why don't you do something? Write a note, leave it in the trash can. I'll take it out, and I'll let people know that you're here. And that's the story of that note that you had
Yo,
just put up.
really? That's how that note got out.
That's how that note got out, because see the officer couldn't believe that President Chavez had resigned. So he came up to him and said, very respectfully, he's like, "Is it really true?" And he says, "No, son, I didn't resign." "No, then we have to do something about it. Leave the note in the trash because they'll never see it. I'll take the trash out. I'll take the note out, and then I'll try to get this out in public." And that note started traveling around, people started getting, sending pictures of the note, and that's how we started to know, and we could see his signature there, and that's how we realized that he was really, he hadn't resigned, he was still president, and we had to fight to get him back. And it was, and this was what convinced the armed forces to remain loyal and to defend the Constitution, because there was a lot of confusion, because you had the people in the coup saying that he had resigned. You see, he faxed it. That's what you have. You have a fax.
Yeah,
The officer took the note out and he faxed it
because I
outside.
saw
Yeah.
I saw the note in the museum that is
Right.
in Chavez's tomb. You go to
Yeah.
Chavez's tomb, incredibly emotional,
Mhm.
just an incredible experience. So there is a museum in the fort where the tomb is, and there's a display where there are pictures from the people in the streets responding to Chavez being secreted away somewhere, kidnapped, basically. And
Mhm.
there is someone outside the gate of Miraflores, which is the presidential palace, holding a copy of the letter. And I'm standing there,
That's
and I
right.
took that picture, and I was standing there wondering, how did they get a copy of that letter?
Yeah.
So I mean, the story of how that letter was delivered from
Yeah.
President Chavez to the officer to the people is amazing, and I think it
Yeah.
leads me to the other question that I have, that I'm sure people want to know, that I'm sure people don't know about. So I attended the Militia Day uh, rally, and I've never seen anything like it.
Mm.
It was very disconcerting for me, as someone who is from the U.S., who lives in a country where people who look like me, and people who are poor, people who are disabled, people who struggle with mental challenges, do not have a positive relationship with the police, and nobody has a positive relationship with the military unless they're a part of the military, because even though the people who are in the military and in the police come from among the people. So
Mhm.
I'm attending Militia Day, and I'm standing there at this rally, which is a rally to celebrate, to commemorate the people overturning the 2002 coup. And there
Yeah.
are members of the military, there are militia members, men, women, indigenous, black, just amazing. But it was
Yeah.
also kind of disconcerting, Carlos, for me to see members of the militia and members of the police saying the people united will never be defeated. And because here in the US, when we take to the streets and chant that, the cops tear gas us.
Yeah.
You know, they tear gas us, they shoot us with rubber bullets, they pepper spray us, or worse, we get arrested, they bring out the military, they bring out the military hardware. So what is the relationship in Venezuela between the military and the people, the police and the people?
It's very difficult to explain, and in the sense that it is part of our history and of our culture. because ever since, even since the process of independence, it was the people that, that led and participated in the process. So you don't really have, as opposed to other armies in the region, you don't have that issue that, the high ranking officers come from the elite, from white elite of the traditional European ancestry. You actually have the opportunity here from, for people from any background to become, to rise up to the ranks, and that allowed the process to be more, in a sense, more democratic. Of course, there were moments in Venezuela's history where it was, the army was employed to repress, to to protect the elite, and to hurt the poor. But there was a big trauma in 1989 where we went to the streets as a rejection of neoliberal policies, and the reaction of the government, who was trying to implement the IMF loan package,
Yeah, the
structure
brutal
program.
restructuring.
Right. So when they were trying to, the response from that government was to take just send the army to the streets and repress people. And official accounts say that there were 293 people that lost their lives. We found mass graves that that at least tell you of about 3 to 5,000 people dead
Oh God.
on that week. So this was a trauma because it was recruits, it was young officers who were forced to open fire on the population, and this seriously traumatized these young people in the military. And that's why then later in 92 you have an uprising against that repressive so-called democratic government. You had an uprising from the military who says, look, we're not going to do this again, we're not going to shoot our own people again, we're not going to fall into this trap. We want this relationship to be different. That's why, that's where the beginnings basically of this more unity between civilians and the working class people came about, with President Chavez winning the election. That that actually grew. And President Chavez was always very one of the problems he had with the elite that used to be part of the military when he first arrived, was that they saw themselves as privileged citizens. They didn't see themselves as part of the people. And President Chavez began programs. So the first social programs that we had here in Venezuela were carried out by the army. The army went to the streets to do. I mean, you had a lot of people, technicians in the army, doctors, and the first thing they did in the Bolivar 2000 program in the year 2000 was go out in the streets and give medical assistance to the poor, to low income communities, help with the sale of subsidized food, lower cost for the people. So what you began really was a process where people started engaging with the military in very different terms. The military was really there to help and to provide for the people, rather than just that notion of policing, protecting,
Mhm.
always using force. It was a turning point in the relation. Those early days, and I mean that before, even before the coup, that's what generated the split, that the generals turned against Chavez, but the troops really understood what Chavez was doing, because they were part of the people as well, and their families suffered the same thing that all of the other Venezuelan families suffered. The high inflation, the poverty. They knew what was going on. So eventually, after the coup, after that military elite was taken out of the army, then a stronger bond developed between the armed forces and the people. That's why you see today people celebrating with the armed forces, because it's a victory of both. I mean, you really can't, you couldn't have succeeded in 2002 if the people from the military had not been loyal to the Constitution and to their own people. Rather, if it would have happened 20 years earlier, they would have shot at the people who were trying to put President Chavez back in the palace. So I think that was a key transformation. It was make the military more sensitive to the everyday plight of the Venezuelan people, and making people understand that the military is suffering and undergoing the same problems that you do, because they're also part of the people. There's no distinction between one thing or the other. The military is the people, and that's what we've been striving to achieve here.
Yeah, I definitely think President Chavez having the military provide services to the people um, was, I mean, just that is just something that is something unheard of. I can safely say that will never happen here. I mean, we had Katrina, which was a disastrous hurricane that we received support from Venezuela in response
Yeah.
to Katrina and Cuba. That George Bush at the time denied Cuban doctors to come and provide support, but the Venezuelan people, the Bolivarian government, provided support to us in New Orleans because of Katrina, because there is that understanding that the military exists to protect the people in more ways than just going to war. So that I think is I would love to see that happen here in this country, but I'm not going to hold my breath. You know?
But let me say something though.
Mhm.
This revolution has been going on for 20 years. 30 years ago, it was unthinkable.
Right.
So you may think right now, you may say, that you can't imagine it. We couldn't imagine it either.
Mm.
But it came to a point where society, and the political system was so decomposed, was so frail, that the people had to go to the streets and basically take over the democratic process. It's achievable. It's something that can happen. And I think it's important to always think that when people unite, when people get together, organize, a lot of transformations can take place that you think are impossible. We
Mm.
thought it was impossible here, and now look how far we've gone.
That revolutionary optimism, I needed that. I really did. Now, I remember because a couple of people in the chat are reminding me that Venezuela also provided, excuse me, oil
Yes.
to low income residents in the United States during the harsh winters in some of the northeastern regions, and that was eliminated because of sanctions. I mean, so the solidarity with the working class and poor has come from Venezuela our way. And I'm wondering, and I left, I was at the conference, I was at the summit, wondering what more can I do to be in solidarity with Venezuela? What more can we do to be in solidarity with Venezuela? What do you see solidarity from us looking like for you, particularly now as we're seeing this this attempt of a global coalescing of right-wing forces from Colombia to the
Mm.
Venezuelan right trying to reassert itself to obviously in the United States, in the Philippines, in wherever there is a right wing reactionary government, they have been coordinating for decades for I think this very moment. So what does solidarity look like from us to you in this fight, this continued fight against fascism, but also in your struggle to continue to defend the revolution?
I think the most important thing that the people of the United States can contribute to Venezuela and to the world is not giving up. It's not, whenever the people of the U.S. fight against imperialism, against this, these the supremacy, this white supremacy logic, against this interventionist logic. I think it is very, it's very good for the world and for you as a country. When that happens, because it shows that humanity is still there, and that the struggle for social justice is still there. And I think it's very key and very important. Telling what you saw, telling the truth, telling uh, you know uh, the experience, sharing that experience is also, I think, something that allows the world to understand, what really goes on in Venezuela, rather than this imposed narrative. Because any newspaper you pick up, any TV channel you turn on, has been out to attack us, since the revolution started, and has been out to manipulate Venezuelan reality. So I think that the people that come here to witness what really goes on and share that do a great service and a great help, not to us but to truth, to truth, and to the U.S. itself. Because I think it is important that people in the U.S. you know see uh, that the policies that the government implements against people's trying to be, to emancipate themselves and to be free and to be independent, to be, and to have their self-determination. Well, I think it's important that U.S. society sees that, and understands that, and understands how important it is not to intervene into the affairs of other countries. At the end of the day, we're not asking people to, to choose our path. We're not asking people to do things our way. We're just asking people to let us have our self-determination. Let us make our own decisions. Let us be able to create our society in the way we see is more fit for our country and our people.
Yeah, definitely. One of the questions in the chat for you, Carlos, is can you speak on a few of the shortcomings of the revolution? Because, and I feel like that's an important question because I see this happen on the left in the United States a lot, where we idealize revolution as a concept, and then we kind of put certain revolutionary leaders on a pedestal, and we don't do a lot of examination into the fact that number one, revolution is not like a thing; it is a
Mm.
process. It's not like this thing that you do and it's done and everything's great. It's a process that you constantly have to defend, which should, for us in the United States, really should call into question this foolishness that they called a revolution in 1776. That was not a revolution. Now, for the people, that was
Mm.
something else. But yeah, like can you, do you feel comfortable speaking on a few of the shortcomings of the revolution?
No, for sure. This is a process that is not perfect. This is a process that has a lot of things that we need to improve, and then we need to make sure that like any process in the middle of polarization, it has a lot of contradictions, and we made mistakes. We made mistakes in we've allowed sometimes to for bad policies to take place. We in in all spheres. Some policies have not been as successful as we wished. There's experiences, for example, with cooperatives at the beginning that weren't as successful as we thought they would be, and then maybe later they improve with the communes. But we suffer all the problems that a country, trying to defeat colonialism and capitalism faces. We have corruption. We have we have issues with trying to overcome the extractivism, in the sense that we are an oil producing country, and in the times we live in, where we're more conscious of climate change, it's very difficult for us to depart into a new economy, because that was sort of the division of labor that was envisioned for Venezuela during the neoliberal age. And even before that, you are the ones that produce oil. You're the ones that, that's how your economy should be. So it's been a struggle to try to reform and restructure an economy. And it's always easier to keep doing what you've been doing for 100 years, because that's what you know how to do. And so there's a lot of things we need to do, and socially we need to advance more in different rights that that have been discussed by the people, that need to be brought up and discussed even further. And there's a lot of pending things to be done now. um, and I say this, for example, our feminist movement will say to you, well, we still need to talk about abortion, we still need to talk about same-sex marriages, all these issues that in other places there have been some advances. We have advanced in attacking poverty, but there's a lot of issues that we still need to advance. Now, we have a conviction, I personally have a conviction, that all these transformations that we want to do can only be achieved under revolution. They will not be achieved under a neoliberal government. They will not be achieved under, a right-wing setting, because that's not in their interest. Their interest is only profit. Our interest is the people, and we still have a debt. 20 years may seem like a long time, but it's really nothing when you're trying to overturn a whole system of domination, a whole
Hmm.
system inherited from colonialism, from racism, from all these things that are still there. So it's a struggle. It's an everyday struggle. We still need to do a lot more things to feel comfortable and say, we've achieved everything we set out. We're still a long way from that, but we know, when we recognize what we have achieved, we have achieved a more democratic process. We have achieved, strong mobilization from people, and consciousness, together with that mobilization, that people do politics with eagerness, with a belief that you can transform society. So that's the path we're on. And we could always do more. We could always do better. We need to fight against our bureaucracy. We need to fight against corruption. We need to fight against all these things that are part of that decaying system, and finally bring in the new system that will be more responsible to the people directly, and can do those transformations that we need.
Yeah, indeed. So, I really benefited from the presentations at the uh, International Summit Against Fascism, and people are wondering if they can see any of those presentations. Where can they access that information? Because I think it would be very helpful for people to access that stuff, particularly the documentary on
Yeah.
Chavez that was debuted.
Well, there's many things you can see. We have a in our YouTube channel. We still haven't put up English, because we need to do the translations.
Mhm.
So maybe right now we'll have to work on that. Now, but you can follow us on Twitter, and we try to publish some things in both languages, and try to do getting as much material out as possible. Now, you could on the historic issues, you could always watch. I think it's a wonderful film, documentary called "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised," that talks about the coup in 2002, and it's a fantastic film, because it was made by a team of reporters who were here in Caracas, doing a sort of like a bio on President Chavez, and then the coup happened, and
Mm.
happened to be inside the palace, and they filmed. They just kept filming, and because they were blonde and blue-eyed, because they were Irish, nobody kicked them out of the palace. Nobody bothered to ask what they were doing there, and they got this incredible footage of everything that went on during the coup. So I don't think there's a piece of documentary work as amazing as that, and I think it will help you understand what really happened here in Venezuela. In a larger sense, on a more on a larger regional scale, you can also look at Oliver Stone's South of the Border, which is a very good film, also which contextualizes what we've seen. There's other pieces that are great, but I think those two are very good to start.
Great. Carlos Ron, thank you so much for your time. This was really an inspiring conversation for me. It just carries over the inspiration that I got from being in Venezuela. And I'll certainly go back. This was just it was almost like a teaser. I was just kind of observing, from just kind of soaking it all in, but now I just really want to get deeply immersed in it. So you'll probably see me again, I'm sure.
You're very welcome to come anytime and visit us.
I thank you so very much. And we will check out the Simón Bolívar Institute on Twitter and on YouTube. And check out the content there, folks, and look out for the English language translation of some of the content from the
Yes.
International Summit Against Fascism. Once again, Carlos Ron, thank you so much. I appreciate
No,
you.
thank you. My pleasure, and keep doing this great work that you do, because I think it's important for not only for you but for us all of us who believe in social justice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye. So that was dope, y'all. I'm hoping that it was beneficial for you, and I'm about to give you the Twitter information, the Twitter information, YouTube information for the Simón Bolívar Institute for Peace and Solidarity among peoples. This is the website. It's really very simple. It's www.isb.ve. And from there, let's see, let me see, is the Twitter there? Where is the Twitter? Oh, there it is, down at the bottom here. So I'm going to drop the Twitter link here for you. And YouTube. And also Facebook. So, like I said, folks, I really had an amazing time in Venezuela. I learned so much more about Venezuela than I knew, than I thought I knew. And of course, it's just the revolution in Venezuela gives me hope for what we can do here. But it also gives me hope for what we can do on the continent. I do believe that a one united Africa under scientific socialism is entirely possible. We just have to put in the work to do it. And I'll have some more thoughts about the left and ourselves in regard to how we do revolution, or how we view revolution, or how we act, that I think kind of gets in the way sometime. But for tonight, I'm going to leave that, because I think that conversation with Carlos Ron was the kind of revolutionary optimism that we need. So I'm going to leave y'all with that. And I appreciate you hanging out with me tonight here in Lukman Nation, the most dangerous show on social media, on the most dangerous platform on social media, Black Power Media. So you all take good care of yourselves. the rest of the week. Check me out on Friday, where I believe I will have Dr. Linwood Tawheed for another episode of Blackonomically Speaking. Don't know what we're going to be talking about, but we're going to talk about Black economics. That's for sure. So thanks a lot, you all. Have a great evening. As always, peace if you are willing to fight for it, and we have got to fight for it. Good night, y'all. And they are out here throwing up the peace sign like they won something. Yep. I don't understand what they think they want.
I need to revise. I did see white people this happy. I gave the example of America and the Allies' defeat over Nazi Germany. But I haven't seen this many white people happy. There was a couple periods in history. One was when Nutella was introduced. And I haven't seen that many white people happy since Nutella was introduced and marketed and stuff. Because white people love Nutella.
They booked the surgery just to pull me out of the basement. Right back where I started, nothing to show for a facelift. Got pushed playing Walter White and Davis, never felt so dangerous. The type of power they can't quantify. And name the best from my region, you gotta utter mine. Think of who really putting on, you never come to mind. Rapping like your Spotify, tap you rappers compromise. Yeah, no need to panic, just paint the canvas. If you can feel the static, you're too close, find your balance. Embed the revolution for they prohibition ban. With blood trickle from the leaders he was planning. I had them all line before I dial up. How they claiming they on top when I'm a mile up. I had them all line before I dial up. How they claiming they on top when I'm a mile up. Boarded that flight to Amsterdam. When my accountant and minus my family found out too and didn't like it. You're not in this alone. What Dale said and I thought he was biased. Then I got a Venmo that said copy the finest. Before my foolishness settled in. Recorded the whole tape before we got to Berlin. This close to giving up but now never again. Don't overlook the work and come expecting to win. In the end, my word, never put nothing over the squad. Got it right up under their nose and try the facade. Off the cliff with broken wings, I'm aware of the odds. Enough faith for us all, I'm the one for the job. Most days, catching sun rays, baby, look like the front page. Overthinking what they might say, have it your way. Yeah, the biggest threat is something they never seen. Dial it up, patch me into the screen. I had them all line before I dial up. How they claiming they on top and I'm a mile up. I had them all line before I dial up. How they claiming they on top and I'm a mile up.